Let's talk about two quick miscellaneous functions that are exciting as well. The hyperlink and image. So these two are miscellaneous because these are not text or kind of date or number, etc. But let's see how we can work with them. Image and hyperlink. So these are two kind of specific types of fields in Data Studio, especially. First of all, I have this image URL here, which is a hyperlink, right? And it's coming from this Google Sheet here. Let me just find it. This is the Google Sheet for sample data. I have email filter, page, image, and links. So this is the image URL coming directly from data, right? Image URL. We have image URL and we have image link. The image link is actually a function, right? It's a hyperlink function. Let's take a closer look at this hyperlink function, how it works. So wherever in your data source, you either have a link or you have different fields that you can use to construct a link that you then want to allow your user, your viewer, to be able to click on it. So either you have a link or you can construct a link for the viewer to click on. We can use the hyperlink function. So in this case, in my data set here, sample data, I have the image host, the top level domain, I have the image path, right? And I have the text of the link, the anchor text that I want to show for each of these links, right? So assuming that I don't have this, assuming that I don't have the final image URL, right? I can actually concatenate the host and the paths to the image, right, as the link itself, and then show the link text, the value of link text here as the anchor, okay? And when I use them in the hyperlink function, which we can see link label, so whatever is the URL and the link label, then Data Studio shows the hyperlink like this in a clean way, right? If I directly, this image URL, you see, it's directly the URL itself. If I directly apply it to my table, it shows you can click on it, right? But it's ugly. It's not the text that you want to show. I've used it for different case scenarios, the hyperlink function. One of which was a client had different email addresses, and based on the values on the report, they wanted to allow the viewer to click and email a person in their organization. So we use a case function, and depending on the different categories, we returned an email address. The result of that case function, which was an email address, I concatenated with mail to equals, which basically constructs a mail to link. And then I put it in the hyperlink function. So I basically created a hyperlink that based on the values on the report, when you clicked on it, it would open something in your Mac or Windows operating system to actually email the person responsible for that part of the report. So there was something. And another thing that comes really handy is when you want to dynamically link to a filtered version of another page in Data Studio. So we haven't talked about that, but just for the record, if you want to explore this further, in Data Studio, when we are looking at the report and the report setting, where is it? Report setting, then on the sidebar, we should have report setting, or we should have wait, or we wait. Oh yeah. Here we have enable viewer filters in report link. If you enable this, when you change the filters on the report, the actual URL changes. We can explain it later on or look at some demos. I don't have anything ready right now. But basically, it allows you to create dynamic links to filtered versions of a page. For example, on which page did we have some kind of, we didn't have any filters, right? Or we did, I guess, in the case function, in the order here. Okay, I have to go back. So here we have a kind of control, which we can filter the page to only show Google Cloud as in the name of the product. Okay, so if I enable this feature for this report, and then I go to view mode, So enable this one and go to view mode. And now I change it to something else. Instead of Google Cloud, for example, I change it to YouTube and click. You can see that the URL changed. There are some random kind of, I don't know if it's UTF or ASCII or something, but we can see the parameter, the actual value that we use to filter the report within the URL. Now we can use this URL directly and give it to someone to open this specific page with this specific filter that we have. So this is something that we sometimes use when creating links with hyperlink. So we hyperlink from one page of the report to a filtered version of another page in the report itself by constructing the first part of that page URL, then adding in the value that we want to be used for that filter. In this case, I used YouTube, right? So this one we can use with concatenate the first part, then YouTube, and then the second part, and it will construct a link that will open that page with the setting already applied, okay? So for example, you can create a country deep dive page that shows everything about a country, or in Fernando's case, a district deep dive page in your report, just a single page, not multiple pages, but with different URLs to that single page, you can load it for different districts. So instead of creating 50 pages, you create one page, you maintain one page, you update one page, and only the URL is different when you load that page. So that was the hyperlink, something quite easy, but very useful in specific cases. Another one, which is a nice feature, is the image kind of type of field in Data Studio. One thing to keep in mind is that we cannot define the image function at the chart level. It has to be defined at the data source level. So even here, I don't have the FX, so I cannot click and edit it here. I can only define it and edit it at the data source level. But basically the way it works, that I have the URL of that image, like in my data source. So I either have the exact URL of the image in my data source, or I can construct it by concatenating some other values that I have in my data source. So maybe I have the domain and I have the image URL, but I have to add in HTTPS at the beginning, continue with domain, continue with image URL, and add .jpeg or .png at the end to construct the full URL of that image. I can do that as well. But in this case, I had the URL, so I just wrapped it in image. And despite the URL in my data source being in a string format, in text format, Data Studio loads the contents of that image with this function, and you can load it in a table. This is useful when you are reporting on, for example, display campaigns, which you want to have the metrics assigned to and related to different kind of display ads side by side with the ad itself. So to see which kind of visual works best for your advertisement. The only place that you can show an image is in a table. And a trick that you might use in Data Studio, which is unrelated, but if you don't have image on a table, you can never adjust the height of rows of a table in Data Studio. It is not adjusted. So you can adjust the width of columns, but you cannot adjust the height of the rows. What I use when I want to adjust the height of the rows, I add a transparent image in one of the columns, right? And then by adjusting that transparent column, actually, because the image takes some space, you can adjust the height of the rows in Data Studio. So that was a trick.